Mike, thanks for joining us. I'm super excited to talk to another gig worker and someone that actually podcasts about it too, which is super cool.
Yeah.
Why don't you tell me a little bit about you and your history as a gig worker, and we'll just kind of go from there.
Yeah, absolutely. So I've been an Uber Eats driver now for about a year and 8 months, I want to say. And at the time, I was about, 20 months ago or whatever, I was with CBS Sports Radio. I was producing our national morning show there.
Okay.
And I got up at like 3 a.m., did the morning show, was out of the office, which was in New York City, driving back to New Jersey. And for me, it's about a 30-minute drive. Got back into my area. So I'm home around 12 o'clock. And I just needed something to do in the afternoon. And I was like, I'm kind of bored with what I'm doing at work, and I have these whole afternoons free. So I was like, I want a part-time job. So my wife and I were just looking at some stuff, and I didn't want to have something where I was like, I have to go into here from 2 to 8. I have to go into here from 4 to 10. And I was like, just in case something happened with my full-time job where I needed the flexibility. So she recommended, why don't you become an Uber Eats driver? And at first I was like, I'm not doing that. Like, get out of here. You're crazy. There's no way in hell I'm leaving my full-time job at CBS and then going on the road as an Uber Eats driver. So she's like, do it. I was like, okay, fine. Let me give it a shot. So I did it one morning, and I got to be honest, I love doing it.
Okay.
I really enjoyed, for me, it was a peace of mind as therapy to get on the road and just okay, Mike, you have to focus on picking up this burrito, dropping it off at this person's house, and there's nothing else you can think about. And be completely honest, my mind travels way too fast. Yeah. So I started thinking about all the crap that happened in the day, and this really focused me. And then I was like, oh, I just made some money. Oh, and unlike my full-time job, if I want to keep going, yeah, I'm tired. Yeah, I kind of feel like I want to go home, but do that next delivery. Here's more money. Here's more money. Here's more money. And that's kind of the genesis of where it began. And I just kind of fell in love with doing it, got addicted to it, and truly do like doing it. Now, with that said, like any other job, there's stressful moments. I'm not just going to say oh, okay, here you go. I'm driving. Everybody's so nice. Here's a $30 tip. It doesn't work like that. But I do love doing it.
Did, though.
Right, exactly. It's oh, yes, that's right. I was 3 minutes earlier than you thought the GPS would say. Here's a 20. No, it doesn't work like that. But, there's stress with it. But I kept doing it. I liked it. And fast forward now, I actually left CBS Sports Radio. I have some part-time work that I'm doing in the podcast world. And now I'm doing Uber Eats more on the full-time basis, and then devoting all of me into the podcast side that I've been doing stuff. So that's kind of a little backdrop on how I got involved in the Uber Eats gig economy delivery world.
Wow.
Totally can relate to what you're saying about the just the peace of mind and where you're putting your mind. That was one of the. So I've never actually been an Eat. Well, that's not true. I am an Uber Eats driver, but I've done 4 deliveries because if it's not for me. But I used to, 5 years, 6 years of just doing Uber passenger service, and I love that. That's the same thing about I'm able to just turning my mind off from my day job and just do the next to the next to the next.
Right.
And one of the reasons why I absolutely love that and I miss it like crazy, that's my therapy, to be out there.
Yeah, no, it really, it really can be. And I for me, I like putting on other podcasts, putting on sports talk radio, putting on music, bouncing around. Yeah, I've heard every freaking top 40 song imaginable. I can sing lyrics to Dua Lipa's The Baby, the rap version. I've got that down. That's something I've tried to practice during the pandemic. That's not like Dua Lipa with The Baby. I can do the whole thing. But you just kind of focus on stuff and to piggyback on that on the food side. I like it. I've never been an Uber driver, so I don't know, I haven't had people in the car to talk to, but I like, you pick up the food, put it in the front seat. And then that 17 minutes, the person's house is my time, which I do like.
Right. And we've in this market here, lots of Uber drivers who did this change when the pandemic happened, and they love it. And so absolutely, you're seeing that same here in this market too. So that's great. How big is the Uber Eats market that you're driving in right now? What area are you driving in?
It's huge. So I'm in Essex County, New Jersey. And for people listening, that's probably 15 to 20 minutes outside of New York City. Okay. So it's a highly dense populated area. here in New Jersey, and there are a ton of restaurants, a ton of local restaurants, a ton of chain restaurants, and a lot of people that are ordering out on Uber Eats and all the other platforms.
Right.
So it is very, to answer your question, very busy. A lot of restaurants and a lot of need for delivery drivers.
So have you done any other food delivery apps or just Uber Eats?
Just Uber Eats. And, Piggy, to start when I talked about it, I can't remember now, but I think originally I wanted to get on DoorDash. I think it was DoorDash, but they wouldn't allow me on. There was exclusive amount of drivers and I couldn't get on the platform. So then Uber Eats was like, yeah, we'll take anybody. So I signed up in 2 seconds. It was like, you have a driver's license? No big deal. Come on. Yeah. No, but I went on and, now it's funny because I want to do another platform because I think it would be interesting content to talk about.
Yeah.
Yep.
But I'm now I'm lazy. I'm I can do Uber Eats. The money's been okay. That's it. So I've only done Uber Eats. No Uber. Nobody in the car. Just this is the one. And like I said, a year and a half plus.
Yeah, we talked about will the food delivery be as profitable as the pandemic kind of winds down and people get vaccinated and restaurants. I mean, at least by us, restaurants haven't been open for 2 months. Not dine-in, sorry, takeout, obviously.
Right. Dine-in, yeah.
So we're wondering, as people start going out, because before the pandemic, Uber Eats, you wouldn't touch that with a 10-foot pole in our market. No tips. It was terrible, but now it's that's the go-to is Uber Eats. That's where you make the most money. So we're curious if it's going to continue.
Yeah, I am as well. And I don't think it'll be as strong as it is now. And I think it'll settle, and for the good of the world, it'll be great when restaurants open and people can go out and can do things. But I do think the standard's been set where there will be a lot more Uber Eats deliveries that are coming to people's houses than they did before. I don't think it'll be as hot as it is right now. Right now in the Uber Eats incentives, I mean, they're crazy. Do every 2 deliveries, here's an extra $8 for just completing them. So, you do it 4 or 5 hours. Yeah, you do 4 or 5 hours. All of a sudden you look at it's $200. I mean, it's out of control. It's really good money. You can make between $30 and $40 an hour, I would say right now, if you know what you're doing.
Right.
Yeah.
And you are systematic about it. With the incentives, the money is there. But to answer your question, I think it's definitely going to dip and it's going to go down. And right now it's cold weather here in Jersey.
Yep.
The pandemic's still going on. People are doing a lot of orders and, restaurants are only at 20% capacity. So there's a need by these restaurants for deliveries. So I selfishly, I want it to keep continuing and obviously I want more, but I understand too, at the same time, it's going to be good for the world if we can get back to what it was when we could, go to a restaurant and just hang out and go to a bar and have fun and all the stuff that we love and enjoy.
I do think it's going to be a middle ground. I mean, here we are seeing a lot more people utilizing, obviously, the shipping service, the shopping services, Shipped and all that stuff. And I think it's not going to go back to what it was before because a lot of people are getting used to that and they really like it. And I think the same is the case with also the Uber Eats and the food delivery, those things. People just like it. So I think it's going to be a middle ground.
Yeah. I mean, I can say from using your example with the groceries, my wife and I would go to the grocery store. I would do all the grocery shopping. And now in the last however months it's been, we've had it delivered to our house. And now I'm we have a 4-month-old baby. I'm this is great. It comes to us. And I mean, I understand sometimes there's food that's missing and you can't make that decision yourself if you're in there. But for the ease, the time, convenience, it's an incredible luxury to have when somebody can drop off the groceries at your front door. It's incredible.
Yeah.
Not to mention all the stuff that you didn't really want in the first place that doesn't make it into the cart.
Well,
when you go shop yourself, right?
Oh no, exactly. Too. It's let me take that. Let me take that. I want an extra pop chips. You know what? Let me get the rotisserie chicken. Why not? Yeah, you can't.
I know.
Can't make those judgments.
$80 later, you're like, why is my bill so high? I'm I was doing this while I was walking by.
Well, it's also too in this. I love. I mean, truth be told, is when I did the morning shift, I liked my Friday night evenings. I would go to the grocery store. It was when nobody was there. I liked it. And the hot bar was like my favorite thing in the whole world. It's like hot wings, turkey, mashed potatoes. Now it's like, oh, that sounds awful. And like a, the germ central. But that was another thing. It was like, oh my God, that's $14. And and it's that much food. What the hell? How is that possible? So yeah, you're right. The money would just add up when you get into the store.
So let's switch gears a little bit. Let's talk a little bit about the podcast. One of the things I listened to 2 episodes today. I listened to one with you and your wife, and then one with you and I can't remember his name.
Leon,
I
guess.
So he one thing I noticed that you said at the beginning about and man, I was really pumped up. I'm so glad that was it was literally the last 2 episodes that you published about podcasting, and you were like, people were telling me not to do it and blah, blah, blah. Right. And like, you just got to do it. If you want to do it, you just go for it. And I was like, yes, I love this guy. I was so pumped. I'm like, I was doing the Amazon Flex route, delivering, and I was listening to it. And I'm like, yes.
Yeah.
So tell me about how you started the podcast and why you started it. I mean, obviously you were in media, so that's just kind of a natural fit.
Right. Yeah, for sure. And I've always had like a podcasting bug, and I've loved it. I lived in Charlottesville, Virginia about 8-10 years ago, and I actually created this little podcast network where I created podcasts for small businesses and had it as an opportunity for them. Instead of doing traditional advertising, they could do a little mini podcast, get out their name, give tips, etc. So I've always been into podcasting. I had one years ago with my buddy Leon, who you referenced. It was called Outside the Box with Mike and Leon, and we did this like 12 years ago, which now I'm like, damn it, why did I stop doing that?
No.
But that's another story. So I've always had an itch and been into podcasting. And I wanted to do my own again, but I just did not know what it was. And I didn't want to do one just to do it. And as I started to do all these Uber Eats deliveries, I kept telling people like, you won't believe what happened today when I did this Uber Eats delivery. This guy came out in his underwear and he was wearing the same underwear as me, whatever it was. And then I was like, oh my God, this is the podcast. I can get on here, express my stories on the road as an Uber Eats driver, tell everybody what's going on, and then talk about my life a little bit. And it was initially called Basketball Drive. So I'm a big basketball junkie. So I would talk basketball. And the more I did, I was like, nobody cares what I have to say about basketball. My opinions are generic on the topic. So whatever. But what I have to say about like when I'm delivering food was unique, different, and interesting. And people really seem to gravitate towards that. And I was like, you know what? This is the podcast. I want to just talk about my deliveries as an Uber Eats driver. And it's kind of morphed and developed where now I have to do interviews, get people on. And then my wife and I will get Uber Eats foods that I've delivered, try them, give our review on the food. And it's a good way for us to hang out and talk and have a lot of fun with it.
So we should probably specify it's not the food you deliver. You go and buy it again yourself.
Yes, that is a fair point. Yes, I'm not going to Josh's house and here's your Popeyes order. And I say, hey, Josh, by the way, you don't get your chicken today.
Yeah. I took one of your chicken Sammys out.
Exactly. But I do want to say this to start with what you had asked about, just going for it. I truly believe that. And I mean that. And I know a lot of people are always saying out there like, oh, everybody's got a podcast. Oh, there's all these podcasts. Well, you know what? Who cares? Have your own, have pride in it, do a great job with it. Don't cancel out the noise. Understand it's a process and it takes time. But if it's something you love and you like to do and you want to talk, who cares what other people have to say? And I'm a big believer in that. I really mean that. And I take pride in that. And I think it's so important. If you have a voice and you have something you want to talk about, go for it and put your passion into it and not care what anybody else says.
Well, one of the things which I really liked, and I know this is the word nowadays is pivot. When you're doing the basketball, which I hate, by the way, pivot and journey. When you're doing the basketball thing, I liked how you're like, you know what? Like, there's a ton of podcasts out there. Well, I would still supported you if you still did the basketball thing, but I'm perfectly blunt with people, especially on Reddit and the podcasting groups. They tell me, they talk about an idea. I'm like, listen, I'm just going to tell you straight up. You are not going to move the needle. You need a niche. You need a niche. And you're like, oh, Uber Eats. Us. Like, we started out as a rideshare podcast. It was Rideshare Adventures. And we're like, oh, we need to pivot. We need to talk about the gig economy because that's what's going on now. So that's pretty awesome that you did that.
But I think the difference also, Jason, just real quick, and because I think one of the things that Mike was mentioning, and I think you guys are both right? But Mike wasn't necessarily seeing it from a business perspective. If you want to talk, go talk. It's fine, totally good. Now, as you're saying, Jason, if you want to build it into something that you can grow, then you got to have a niche, because you got to be able to figure out how to make that into something that can generate money. But if you just want to talk and you just want to have a podcast, absolutely go for it.
Yeah, and I understand, both sides of that. And like for me, I want to have both. So I want my cake, I want to eat it too. So what you're both saying is exactly what I wanted. And I said, the basketball stuff it was fine, it was fun, but telling people the stories from the road as an Uber Eats driver and getting into the nitty gritty of what actually happens when you're picking up somebody's food, what it's like during a pandemic and going through all of that. For me, that was the bread and butter, and that's and personally, I ended up becoming more passionate about that than I was sports. And I kind of reference back when I was working at CBS. When you work in sports all day, like the cool part about sports for people is when you're done with your job and you put on the sports game, it's an escape. But for me, it was like, oh no, it's Sunday. I have to watch these games and I have to see what happened. Like I was like I hated Sunday. I hated NFL, which is not good. And then getting rid of not working at CBS, like I wanted sports to be a place of happiness again. And again, like I said, just my passion was speaking about delivering, quesadillas more than it was talking about who did well in the Eastern Conference Finals.
Right.
Yeah, as I listened to your podcast with Leon, right?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, I remembered it. That's a win for me.
I forget it half the time. Don't worry.
It truly is a win. Well, usually when I'm live streaming, I'm doing so many things because I kind of run it from the studio here, so I'm like not focused like this.
I for somebody that ran sports boards and was talking to people, I totally understand where you're coming from.
Yeah,
and I understand, and I get it, and I have compassion and sympathy for multitasking and doing everything involved with that. So you can call him Leon, you can call him Joe, you can call him Sam, you can call him Cynthia, you can call him Hillary. I don't care. It's all good. Don't worry about it.
Yeah.
So yeah, when I was listening to the podcast today, I found myself like having a conversation like, no. Like you were talking about, the family-owned business where the kids are there. I'm like, no, you go tell that guy, like, this is bullshit.
Right.
You, what are you doing here? Like, I found myself doing that. So I think your podcast would be great for anyone that's doing this work, because you're literally going to be able to connect and go, oh my gosh, I've had the same thing happen. So very well done.
Oh, well, I appreciate that. Yeah. And like, it's a lot of it's stories from the road and weird things that happen, but in a other sense, it becomes like a mini episode of Seinfeld where you're talking about things that happen in your life. And my podcast is evolved because I used to tell the stories alone, but now I found that they're better if I have somebody like alongside me where I can tell the story.
Yes.
Then we kind of interact about it. But yeah, what you're referencing was I was at a restaurant and the people that worked there were little kids, and they were like so rude, so obnoxious, so mean. So I was like, I can't be mean to a kid. But then they're working there, and their parents are just laying back. I'm like, well, what? Something's got to get better here. Like your employees aren't doing a good job, but it's also your daughter. So I'm still like conflicted on that, and that's kind of like what you're referencing, Jason, the story.
Yeah, when I listened to a lot of your stories, I was like, he's way nicer than me, because I've had I've been a dick to some people sometimes, and I'll walk in and like I'm delivering a food, or I'll go to pick it up, and it's been 15 minutes since like I got it. Let's say I was doing another order. See, that's one thing when you get a couple of different apps, it's a lot more complicated. There's a lot of mental games like where things are going, because they're not interacting with each other, right? So
right.
So I'm like 15 minutes. I pull in there like, yeah, it's not ready yet. I'll be like, like that sometimes, and then and I'm like, oh boy, So I don't know. I have no patience for people that don't do their job.
Well, I've just said it to the restaurant. I'm like, just be honest with me.
Yeah.
I'd rather you be honest and transparent, because then I can cancel the order and move along. Like, this is not my food. And you have to have you want to do a good job in your deliveries and your service, but I don't care. There's going to be somebody else out there. And I know that. And I understand how this game works. What drives me nuts, and this is what I've noticed, is it's like, when somebody says this is the new thing where I know it's going to be 15 minutes, it's going to be 5 minutes. It might, probably 6 or 7. And that I've decided in my head, when somebody says it's going to be 6 or 7, that's their way of lying and saying it's going to be 15 minutes, but then getting themselves out of that 5-minute bubble. I've gotten I want to make I have to figure out the name of it, but a chart that's the restaurant lying to the Uber Eats delivery driver. 1 minute equals 3, 2 minutes equals 6, 3 minutes equal 9, or whatever that might be. Because there's a chart that goes with it. Because 5 minutes is never.
Yeah, if they tell you 5, times it by 3.
Right. There's a game you have to do.
You know what else I do is I make myself known. Like I walk into Five Guys, I have a hot bag. I walk right up to the counter. I open my hot bag and I stand there until someone says something to me. Like I don't lay back, because I want this food. I want to get onto the next one. I don't want to I see these drivers sitting back and not saying anything. I'm like, fine, sit back. I don't care. I got shit to do.
You got to be aggressive. And I did a pickup at a place called Hook and Reel, I want to say. And I walked in and there were a couple people waiting. And I didn't know who they were. I cut the line, went to the front. This guy looked at me. He tapped on my shoulder and said, "You're cutting the line." And I went, "You're right." Went right back behind him. I was like, "I ain't messing with you, but you're right. I just cut the line." At this point, nothing I could do about it. He was pissed, and I wasn't ready to F with him.
Well,
Jason would have about what are you gonna do about it?
Right. I don't have your balls, Jason, man. I gotta be honest. I'm like, you know what? You win. I'm going to the back.
There's twofold with that hot bag. Obviously, it provides a warmer meal for your customer and stuff. And when people see that bag, they know what you're doing. So it gives you a little advantage.
That's a good point.
Like there'll be a line out from Panda Express, and I'll just walk right past people. I mean, I'm not rude about it. If they're in the way, I'm like, "Oh, excuse me," But they don't say anything because they see the bag underneath my arm as I'm walking in.
You need to write something on the bag. Like if people look at you like, "Yeah, that's right. Don't F with me. I'm going ahead. You can't mess with this bag." You know what this means? This is instant access to the front of this line.
I mean,
I never thought about it like that, but that's really smart with the bag, kind of just to get you that, like, "Oh, okay, I get it."
I think this coverage. The story goes here in this market, it was since Jason, he's also a DoorDash, right? So your bag says DoorDash, right?
No, right. I have a generic bag.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I thought you had a DoorDash.
Well, I'm sure I did at one point, but they were shitty, so I bought some on Amazon that were quality zippers. So, but yeah, the back to the bag. Yeah, I don't know. Do you use a bag? I'm not going to judge you.
I used to use a bag, and I don't use the bag anymore because I noticed on my end it wasn't changing my tips, and it was just slowing me down a little bit. And now with contactless delivery for the most part, nobody's even seeing that you're going out of your way to like. Before, I'd be like, I would get to the house, open up the bag, take it out, like, "Oh, look how great I am! I kept it in a bag. I'm so good at this."
I still do that.
Now I'm like, screw this. I'm getting rid of the bag. I don't need it. But you may have changed my mind and my thought process with the idea that the bag can help you cut lines. I never thought of that. I've just learned something. So I might not use the bag. I might just have the bag and hold it and then bring it into the restaurants, not even put the food in there. But I have gotten rid of the bag. But yeah, that's an interesting note right there.
I think with the pandemic, it's even better with the bag because they know that there's people are getting a lot of food deliveries. And I, honestly, if I'm doing just a short delivery and I only have one, that's fine. But typically I'm trying to get 2, sometimes 3. And so it might be a little down the line. So I'm like, I guess I try to treat people how I want my food. If I had a guy roll up on a motorcycle in the middle of winter with my food. Now, surprisingly, it was warm. I don't know what he had, but if that was cold, I'd be like, what the hell? I expected it to be a little cold just because it's not fresh, but that's another reason why I use the hot bag, just because if I'm a little late, they may not be as pissed because it's not as cold, but
I think part of that discussion is probably also the size of market. So how often, let's just do an average night, Mike. How many orders do you think you have for Uber Eats in an hour for an average night?
I would say between 2 and 3. 2 and 3 on average, depending on, if you're doing a double, like Uber Eats, you can pick up 2 at the same time from a restaurant, or you can pick up 2, like you go to restaurant A, then you drive and you go to restaurant B, which they should be close-ish together, and then you're going out. But I would say between 2 and 3 an hour. If you get really quick orders, you can possibly do 4, but that's very difficult, I would say.
And are they back to back?
Yeah, back to back. Like right now, they're back to back, and if you have any lag time, it's more of a surprise if you're waiting. I mean, it'll happen where you're waiting 2 or 3 minutes, but right now, especially, like, I would say from 5 p.m. till whatever in the morning, because there's a lot of people here. Like they are nonstop. I mean, a lot of them are bad. A lot of them are really bad, and I decline most orders that come in. But yeah, they're nonstop, and it drives me crazy too, because people like, with the way Uber Eats has changed everything, I can kind of guess now if they've tipped, not tipped, how much they've tipped, and I can kind of do mental math based on the food they got, the distance, the number, and like, sometimes I want to be like, why did you not? And I won't accept them usually, because this gets me so angry. But why would you not tip a delivery driver in a pandemic? I get it. It's expensive. The fees, it adds up. But if you're spending $43 already, and now it has to be $46, $47, at that point, it's like, if that's a difficult task for you to afford, then you shouldn't have been doing the delivery in the first place.
Yeah, exactly. So that's really a tip to the person ordering, right? Like, the fact that you tip, somebody's going to pick it up. You're going to get the food faster.
Yeah, it's like my dream to get somebody from Uber Eats corporate on my podcast, so I can talk to them about like the 8 billion questions going on in my brain, how they figure out the order of everything. When people don't tip, how the order gets placed in different areas. I've not been successful at this at all, but I'm dying to know it, because if there's a great order and a good tip, I will snag that right away, take it, and go. If somebody's not tipping, I'll decline it. So my advice for rookie drivers would be, don't just accept an order because you see it and you're excited. You know, obviously it depends on marketplace and all of that, but be patient, learn your market, and then you can make the right decision on what's the good order to take and maybe not as good of an order, so you understand what the right ones are and what the right ones and the ones that aren't.
Well, the problem is, and so for our market, Uber's the slowest for food delivery. So DoorDash is the king, and then I would say, like, I make most of my money on Grubhub and DoorDash, and then Uber comes in. But when I do get an Uber one, typically it's really good.
Right. Interesting.
But DoorDash, I'm telling you, man, the $3 orders I get, I know DoorDash's base is $3, so I'll get a $3 order. There's no tip there. I can tell you right off the bat.
Right.
And I think the reason people aren't tipping is because people are delivering those $3 orders.
Exactly.
That's the problem. If you continue to do that, they're just going to be like, okay, like, I'm not going to tip because some asshole's going to take this.
Uber Eats now, the minimum is $2. So like, out of pride, I could not do that. I mean, out of common sense too, like that. You don't, would you accept a job that pays you $6 to $8 an hour? I mean, that'd be insane. No. So I mean, the only, I guess maybe if it was like you were delivering to your next door neighbor and it was your drive home, and like, well, at this point, I'm just going to the next house next to me. I might as well make $2. Still, even for that, I'm like, I'd rather just go to my home 10 seconds earlier. It blows my mind why people would accept that.
You know, it all depends on time of day, right? Like on a Tuesday at lunch when I'm delivering, I might take a $6 or $7 order because I'm like, it's Tuesday at 1 o'clock in the afternoon. I'm not expecting a big tip. But on a Friday night or a Saturday night, I'm not taking anything less than $10.
No, you got to be selective and smart, and exactly know the time, know the area, and all the factors that go into making the right decision. Absolutely.
You did bring up like your next door neighbor. There have been times where they DoorDash will throw one on there that it's like an extra like $2, like you said, and it's almost next door, and I'll decline it because they'll tell you on DoorDash, it'll say, like, I've had it say 200 yards. Like, that's the distance between the two. I'm like, I ain't doing that shit. Look at the amount of money I'm getting for this. And even if it's from the same restaurant, I'm like, I'm not doing it. It's out of principle. This is bullshit.
No, it is. And it's something I think I need to get better at, because there could be like a big distance order, but if they don't tip, I'll find that I will not accept the order. Maybe even though when it's all said and done and you look at the time and distance, it's probably worth taking it. But my ego is the word. It's so pissed off that you wouldn't tip. And I wanted to do this for podcast purposes, but just go up to somebody and be like, hey, out of curiosity, Why did you not tip me?
Oh,
I just would love, and I know that's probably like going over the fourth wall of Uber Eats drivers,
right?
But I'm dying to know, like, what happened where you decided not to tip me? You were friendly at the door. You seem nice. Your dog's cute. Looks like you got a great family. Why couldn't you slip me a $3 to $5? Like, what happened there? I just want to ask somebody, and I haven't had the stones to do it yet.
Well,
a couple of weeks ago, there was a video that went, I don't know if it was viral or not.
I know what you're talking about.
The lady who was like, no, you must have made a mistake here, sir, because it was a 45-minute drive. You obviously meant to tip. Like, what?
Right. Well, see that in that video, I mean, that was, I think the guy said, I tipped you $8, right?
Yeah. What did you expect?
Which is a very good tip. And she was clearly out of line based on what was going on there. So yeah, that's a good point too. I don't need to go to somebody's house and hear some crazy guy knocking at the door. The family's inside trying to get some sleep. The guy's working 6 jobs and this asshole is banging on the door. Why didn't you tip? And then there's a GoPro on me. I'm like, oh, all right, great. Finally got popular, and it's because I'm an idiot.
Yeah. Now I'm getting canceled.
Right. Right. The Uber Eats driver gets canceled for being an a-hole out when he's driving on the road because he couldn't understand why somebody couldn't tip him for penny alla vodka. Like, yeah, that's a good point.
So you're doing this full time. We always talk about having several avenues of revenue streams. Aren't you worried if you got deactivated that you may not be able to? Well, I mean, you could get on DoorDash and Grubhub. You maybe have to get on a wait list or whatever, but like, those apps will just deactivate you for no reason. Like,
well, I didn't. And that just gave me some pulsing anxiety.
I'm sorry,
ripped through my heart. So that's good. So I got to go now to sign up for every other app. But no, I mean, I haven't really thought about that. And
sorry,
that is scary. But honestly, that's good. That's good to know. So tell me more about this.
Well, yeah, I mean, because, back in the day, it was just rideshare, right? Uber and Lyft. They didn't even have food delivery. That didn't come out. But the guys always tease me. But I mean, I do Grubhub, DoorDash, Shipt, Instacart, Amazon Flex, Uber Eats. Is there any more?
He has the 9
whatever those form. My accountant hates me, but
W9.
Yeah. I love the variety, and it's good, because sometimes stuff is slower than the others. But obviously, it sounds like Uber Eats is just pumping, and it sounds like you got 100% satisfaction rate, which, by the way, I do too. But I don't have near as many deliveries because I'm
all in the one. Yeah, all my eggs in one basket. Do you find it? Do you find it difficult and confusing to keep up with it? And what's I guess your game plan then when you turn on an app? Why you choose said app one day over the other?
Well, I think, like I said, I think DoorDash pays the worst. Grubhub pays the best. Grubhub and Uber, but DoorDash is the busiest, right? So if the other ones are just like sitting there with a big old nothing going on, and a DoorDash for $6 pops up, I'll take it. But I've also burned myself because then all of a sudden, because I leave all the other apps on, then all of a sudden a Grubhub pops up for 15. I'm like, oh, son of a bitch. You know what I mean? So here's the mental game. Like, that's why I stay in my area. Like, my buddies tease me that I don't go downtown. I stay where kind of I live. I live about a mile away from like 30 restaurants. So I know the area. So if I get one for Grubhub that's going west, and then all of a sudden Uber one, is going west, then in my head I'm like, okay, how far are they apart? So the mental game is tough. It can get really stressful because you're like, and then if you judge wrong, that person's food or the restaurant's taking a long time, then you got the app yelling at you, say, hey, you haven't moved since you accepted this order. Like,
interesting.
Yeah, so it can get a little hairy-carry.
Yeah, I play, like, I pretend I'm a sports player, and or a coach or something, and I'll make a decision on an order, and then I get to the restaurant. I'm like, what? Why did you make this move? This restaurant's slow. Why did you do that? Every time you said you told yourself you're not going to go to the Popeyes in Montclair, New Jersey. You told yourself you're not going to do it. Why did you do it? Even though it said it was going to take 22 minutes and you make you $14, you're going to sit there for 35 minutes. Why did you do it? And I play Monday. I guess it's like Monday morning quarterback.
Yeah,
where I'll live the moments where I'm like, you made a mistake. But I've tried to do a better job in understanding, if you're going to do so many deliveries, if you're going to do how many deliveries a week, there's going to be mistakes that you make. You can't be perfect. Right. It's just trying to eliminate them, do as many right as you can. And then there's circumstances where you can't help it, where something went wrong with the restaurant. Like I picked up from Red Robin and it was a vegan burger and they made a regular burger and they lied to me, but I saw the chef in the back throw out the burger and I was like micromanaging the way they were handling it in the front. I know she didn't love me. I get it. But it was such a good paying order. It was like $23 for 18 minutes. I was like, I'll hang out. I'll hang out and wait till you make the new burger. It's the other 10 minutes. It's fine. But you just got to have to live with the mistakes. And, it's like there's another game tomorrow and just don't let it bother you too much.
I've had the same feeling with, you see that money amount, like you say, the $15 for Popeyes, and you're like, that restaurant is shitty. But that money, you just see it and you're like, it'll be fine. It's not going to be busy today. It's fine. And then you go there and you're like, why did I do this?
I know. It's wild. It's just that you see the money and you're like, it'll be different this time. It'll just be different this time. And it's never different this time. It never is. And I fall for that. At Popeyes in Montclair, I have fallen for so many times. And that place too, it's the Popeyes, you do your own sodas, which is just like, I'm like, well, I don't work here. Should I be doing the sodas? I don't know, but just part of the game. It's also fascinating too. I'm like, Popeyes, terrible. KFC, great. Like what is KFC doing where it's similar type restaurant where Popeyes is a disaster and they can't get the order right? I'm dying to know the answer to that.
So a couple of things for the fast food here. It's tough because dine-in is closed. So the drive-thrus are always packed now. Like, so I don't really take any fast food right now because I'll go to a Qdoba or Jersey Mike's or whatever because there's no drive-through and you can go in. But what was your other point you were talking about? I just lost my train of thought.
Pouring your own drinks.
Oh, the different restaurants. Yeah, why KFC is better than Popeyes. Like we have that here too. Like Chick-fil-A, amazing. On the border, I never have to wait. And you talked about how like they've integrated the software and they're not just referencing a tablet. Like when they get it ordered, it actually goes through their system so they can make it. Like I think On the Border does that because every time I go there, it's ready. Like I literally don't have to ask anybody. It's always there, regardless of how quick I get there. I don't know how they do it.
There's a place called Bear Burger, which is like it's a New York, New Jersey chain. There's probably like 15, 20, 30, I don't know, something like that. And they actually have a cool software where when you put the order in, it goes straight to the kitchen. Okay. It doesn't even go to somebody in the front. It goes to the chef that's working in the kitchen. So he sees the order in real time, just as if you were into the restaurant and the waiter or waitress took your order. So in a lot of ways, like if you order from Bear Burger, you can get your food even faster than if you're sitting in the restaurant, if you live close enough,
right?
Because that order is instantaneously going into the kitchen and then they're processing it down and you get the food fast. So I'm like, that is such a great innovative way of doing things. Maybe other places are doing that. I've thought that in my head. I know Bear Burger is for a fact because I actually interviewed somebody that's developing an app for them and why it did so well. So I think that was great. Like, hey, get the food order, go right into the kitchen. There's no need for it to go from person A to person B. Just get it right to the person that's, making the food.
I hear your hate for Popeyes when I listen to the podcast.
Yeah.
With Leon and with your wife, you do not like Popeyes. Like, do you ever afraid that when you talk about the restaurants that they're going to be like, it's not like,
No, I get what you're saying. I tweeted about it. I was so frustrated with this past order that I did because I went into the said Popeyes and it was 11:30 on a Saturday morning. So my thought process was it's Saturday, it's 11:30. Yeah. There's going to be nobody in there. And I was right. There was one person in there, one woman in there waiting for her food. And then in the Popeyes, there was a person working the counter. And then there was somebody working in the kitchen preparing the food. And this one person that was working in there was just in a bad, sour mood. In a terrible mood. And I could see the woman that was waiting for the food was like getting upset. And like with the mask on, I didn't just hear what she said. But I knew she was in a bad mood and angry about it. And I'm like, this Popeye is not surprised. So she finally gets the food to her and the whole order is jacked up. The side dishes are wrong. Nothing's right. And then they start going at it and fighting about it. And I'm like, oh my God, here we go. And in the middle of this, the woman behind the counter at Popeyes looks at me and goes, your food is not ready. I was like, I get that. So eventually she gets the person that's just picking up her food's like, okay, fine, just give me whatever you want. I'm getting kind of nervous here. So I'm like, okay, deep breath. She's going to make the order. We're good. She starts putting my order together, looks at me and goes, I can't find my cell phone. I'm leaving. Like, you can't find your cell phone. But you're at, like, okay. She just leaves the food sitting there on the counter. And in that moment, I said, why did you take the Popeyes order? I canceled it, left, picked up some teas somewhere else, drove them to Clifton, New Jersey, made $9.80 in 21 minutes and made the right decision. But I was like, what is in that building that makes people so angry? And it's not just all the Popeyes. It's this one particular Popeyes where I think on your resume, it's like, you have to go on there. Are you miserable? Are you angry? Are you in a bad mood? Will you treat the customers like shit? Will you be disrespectful to the Uber Eats drivers? Yes, you're hired. Like, it's unbelievable.
I don't know. It's just a culture. You know, we have gas stations around here. It's a Shell brand, and it's what is it called? Johnny's.
Yeah.
Yeah, the bathrooms are clean, everything's organized. It's just a culture. Like, right, you know,
the management in that one building, like whoever's running the place, just
does not give a shit.
And I want to say, to be fair to other Popeyes, like none of them are the food's perfect and where I would like it, but at least, you know, people are respectful and courteous and nice, and I wouldn't even say maybe not even nice, but just like normal.
Right.
You know?
Right. So why don't you tell me a little bit about, I saw on your Twitter bio that you have the Pros Club. So what is that your little podcasting company?
Yeah, so I created the Pros Club podcast network. And when I talked about earlier, when I was in Charlottesville, I like to create podcasts for different businesses. So I've kind of recreated that. And with this pandemic, now with different video conferencing that's available, people before that maybe couldn't do podcasts or weren't afraid to do it, I help create podcasts for different businesses. I did one for a realtor. And then besides that, I have a little cluster of other podcasts that I do with my, you know, I talked about how I don't want to talk basketball, but I actually do a basketball podcast called Bad Weather Fans with my buddy Alex Benesowitz. He's a New York Knicks fan. I'm a Brooklyn Nets fan. So we do a podcast together where we talk. And I said, all right, we'll do another podcast, but you're promoting it. Yes. You're getting it out there. I'm too busy. I'm too tired. And he does an amazing job with that. So that's like a good outlet for me because that's like the one kind of sports niche thing I want to talk about. So yeah, the Pros Club's been cool to create new content, create more content, and then also at the same time help people that want to do their own podcast and help them out with that.
Awesome. Cool. Awesome. Well, this has been fun. I really appreciate the time. I feel like you and I could probably talk for hours about gig work.
I was going to say, I think we probably should see about getting Mike on
as a guest host.
One of as a guest host
for sure.
One of the regular shows, if you're interested.
Absolutely. I'd love to have you guys on to the Mike Delivers and talk stories from the road. So I hear in your passion, Jason. If I said like a different story, a different scenario, I have a feeling you'd have an opinion on.
Yes, I would.
What I'm looking for.
Yeah, I would get real fired up real quick.
Yeah, no, it's. I mean, they're out, and the thing I always say is like, you know, I'll do said deliveries and be like, I wonder if I'll get any stories this week. And every week, you know, some weeks they're better than others. Some weeks the stories are like, you know, can't miss topics, but they're always out there. There's always conversation. There's always stories. You know, stories from the road as an Uber Eats driver. So I love doing it.
How can people reach you and find everything that you're doing?
Yeah, absolutely. So the podcast is Mike Delivers. And you can find it where, you know, you listen to any of your podcasts, Apple, Stitcher, Spotify, wherever that might be. And then on Twitter and Instagram at Mike Delivers Pod. And on there, I'll just share screenshots of my stories from the road, different orders that I get, all the crazy things that happen. Like today, I tweeted about a hotel delivery. I love hotel deliveries because I think it's like going to somebody's bedroom. I think that's so cool. We like get up there. I'm like, oh my God, what's going on in that bedroom?
Wow.
Like, you get such access. Like anytime I see a hotel delivery, I'm like, yes, I know it's another 3 to 5 minutes because I have to go up the elevator, walk down the hallway, but I get to see inside somebody's bedroom, and that to me is so freaking cool.
What a funny perspective.
I love it. Like, could you do a delivery and be like, hi, yes, open the front door, walk up the steps. It's the second room on the left. Open the door. Like, that's what it would be like. I get to go into your bedroom. So I find them awesome when I get hotel deliveries. It's like, I'm like, ooh, let's see what's going on in this room. But to answer your question, Mike Delivers Pod on Twitter, Instagram, and then Mike Delivers Podcast, wherever you listen to your podcast.
All right, hang tight. I'm going to stop the recording, and thanks again, Mike.
You got it.
All right.